Hey everyone, this is Matt with Surf City TCG. If you're new to my channel, I specialize in EDH/Commander content for Bracket 3, top of the line, optimized Commander decks, typically with no infinite combos. That's my specialty. I have something a little different for you today. This is a recording of a coaching session that I did recently with a member of my Discord. It's a 90-minute coaching session. He provided a deck list for me to look at, and then we covered all of the topics that you can see on the screen here. And he was kind enough to agree to let me post this online so everyone could benefit from it. So here it is for you in its entirety. If this is something that you would be interested in, you can contact me directly on Discord. My handle there is SurfCityTCG, or the link to my Discord is in the video description and comments below. Alternatively, check out my Patreon for more info on how to book one of these sessions. So without further ado, here it is. Enjoy! First of all, thank you for being a Patreon member and appreciate you setting up this time. This is a 90-minute coaching session, and I've set up some agenda items here. I'm hoping to stick to a pretty tight schedule. Happy to stop. I want you to interrupt and stop if you have any questions or you want to clarify something, but I may, depending on how tangential the conversation is getting, say we just need to move forward because I want to make sure we get to everything here. Okay, so here's what I'm hoping to cover today. Intro is what we're doing right now. We'll talk a little bit about what the commander does that for the deck that you specifically asked to look at, but a lot of these concepts are going to apply to everything. That's what I'm hoping. This is going to be more like general help. So even though you did give me a deck list and we'll be using that as an example, I'm hoping a lot of this will be transferable to your other decks, and it's just going to help you in general. We're going to do what's called a SWOT analysis. Do you know what that is? It's fine if you don't.
No, I don't.
Okay, so we'll talk about that more in a bit, but basically it's an acronym. It stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's kind of a way of evaluating things in a business sense usually. Is this acquisition or is this idea make sense? Think of it like a pros and cons list with a little bit more dimension, I guess. So we're going to use this kind of analysis to look at the commander that you chose before we even start considering anything about how we should build it, because I think that's the biggest mistake that I see a lot of new players make is they just want to get into deck building because it is the exciting part, but without understanding what is good and bad and what our opportunities and threats are based on those things, it's harder to deck build in a successful way, I would say. A more positive version of saying this would be it gives you a lot stronger and more solid foundation. And when you have to start making hard decisions about what to add or what to cut, it becomes a lot easier to do that once you've understood where you need to bolster or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So after we get through that analysis, we're going to jump into goal setting. This is mainly going to be based on the SWOT analysis. What are we hoping to get out of the deck, or how are we hoping to get the deck looking? Now, I did do a revision of your deck list, but I'm not trying to say that you necessarily need to have or go out and buy all the cards that I recommended. A lot of the recommendations I'm going to make, I think you can use cards that are already in your collection if you don't have a desire to just go out and buy some singles. So although I am going to give you an updated deck list, it's not perfect. I just threw it together. It was my first iteration, and I could have made a mistake too. So if you feel like there was something I cut that you really liked, or just a pet card that you want to be playing, that's fine. And we can always make those things work. So that's part of what I want to cover in goal setting is, what do you want out of this deck? I know generally what you want. You want it to just function well and be a good bracket 3 deck. But if you have other specific goals for the deck, I really like the dragon theme that I'm running and I want to keep that, that's fine. And we can figure out how to make that work. It just might not fit in the timing of this 90-minute session. I'm going to cover a deck building template that I threw together. There are tons of good ones of these available online. The Command Zone usually has a pretty current and solid one, but I like mine, so I'm going to provide it to you just as a baseline. It's not something that I always use, but I think it's useful to know what the norms are, and then later you can learn when to break those norms, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Category review, I want to spend a good amount of time looking at your deck list as it stands currently, and then we can look at my revised deck list a little bit, but really I just want to look at what about your current list maybe looks good right now and looks like it could use some work, or things that stand out to me. Review the changes. So between my new deck list and your previous one, I might end up shortening this a little bit because, again, I don't want want this to be too much about the new deck list that I put together. I'd rather this be a little bit more about like, how did I figure out this stuff and what do I recommend for you going forward? And then I want to spend the bulk of the time at the end doing Mulligan Practice, because I think that's going to be the most actively useful for you to see if you're making any decisions that, I don't want to say wrong, because there's no right and wrong with the Mulligan decision necessarily, but I want to see your thought process and talk through it together and see if we can figure out any trends that might be like leading you astray or anything like that.
Okay.
So did that all make sense? Any questions or anything you feel like I missed or you want to add or emphasize or de-emphasize?
No, yeah, I definitely agree with like the bulk of the time on Mulligan.
Great, let's dive in. Okay, so here's the SWOT analysis. I haven't filled any of this out because I want this to be a brainstorming session that we work on together. So
Okay.
the way to understand this is strengths and weaknesses, and this doesn't always apply to magics. This is more of like in the business sense. Strengths and weaknesses are internal. They usually come from the business itself, or we'll say in the case of this, the commander itself. So like, what are the strengths that the commander brings and what are the weaknesses? And then opportunities and threats can be very, sometimes like if you think about it, you're like, well, what's the difference between a strength and an opportunity? And in a business perspective, it can be that opportunities are external, so they're not related to anything that the business is doing particularly, but rather the like situation that they're in or the industry or COVID happening. The nature of a pandemic can create opportunities and or threats. So I think this all start to make sense when we get into it. So let's just dive in. So I want you to just throw out anything you think of, and I'm gonna write stuff down. And again, this is brainstorming. There's no wrong answers. So just throw out everything you can think. Let's just take a second and look at what GOGO does. So he's 4 mana for a 2/2 legendary creature wizard. He says, at the beginning of combat on your turn, you can have him become a copy of another target creature you control, except he keeps his name. So he's still GOGO Mysterious Mime because he's a mime. Get it? He's just pretending to be that thing. And then him and the creature that you targeted each get +2/+0 in haste until end of turn and must attack if able. So that's what he does. He, clones a creature. They both can attack right away, and he gives them each a small buff. So what, off the top of your head, are the strengths of GOGO? Go ahead.
That he can copy legendaries.
Perfect.
That he keeps his own name.
What else?
A natural like buff and haste enabler. That's a strength. And then also like just, which I don't know if it's necessarily GOGO, but just the mono red. I mean, it's just a very fast deck.
I thought of that.
Yep.
Anything else?
And then I feel like his ability to copy just like attack triggers for any creature is just a strength. Just the actual the copying ability is a strength. But off the top of my head, that's kind of all that's coming to mind.
Okay. The other things I thought of that you didn't mention are the wizard type could be a strength, maybe not, but like wizards do tend to get some tribal support, so that's something to consider. And I'd say when you're looking at a SWOT analysis, I would always look at what the creature type is. It won't always be a strength, but it could be. Let me think if there was anything else. One thing I think of, and you said it was a haste enabler, which it's sort of the same thing, but like not necessarily the same. I would say like the fact that he can do something the turn you play him.
Yes.
So, some commanders, like especially ones with tap abilities or something like that, can't necessarily do something right away. You have to give them haste in some other way. But, GOGO doesn't need that. He can come down and right away he can give something haste. He has haste, so he can get to work in the second he comes down. So let's put can do something right away. And then the only other thing I think of is what happens with the copies after combat.
Oh yeah, they don't get sacked.
Yeah, so copies remain till end of turn, right? And that's a big deal because it means we can copy things with static abilities that we can then take advantage of in the second main phase, right?
Yeah, like
so actually, now that we're talking about this, let's just add that here to opportunities, right? So copies remain till end of turn. Therefore, the related opportunity would be abuse static ability creatures in second main. You must attack if able. That's, I think, purely a weakness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really just a restriction, so I don't think anything can belong in strengths related to that. Okay, so let's go into weaknesses since we're transitioning there. So let's add that one since I just talked about it. Creatures are goaded, essentially, right? Okay. What else for weaknesses?
Just the fact that he doesn't have natural evasion himself. So he's, unless you copy something with evasion, he's kind of vulnerable since he has to attack to use his ability. The fact that he's only got 2 toughness, I feel like is a weakness for 4 mana.
Yep.
And then also I feel like the way that, like the best way to build the deck is the deck doesn't really do anything without GOGO out. I feel like it's hard to build a deck around GOGO and, it work without him out there.
That's a good one.
I guess another weakness too is like it gives. I mean, I guess people can always respond, but specifically, if I declare a target for GOGO to copy, if somebody removes it, then my turn's done essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I went to a copy Atali for instance, and somebody removes Atali as that trigger goes on the stack, then
Yeah, no, I
I've
think
kind of.
that's a very astute point. So would you say, to paraphrase, his targeted ability like almost is like asking for it?
Yeah,
Like it's creating this window for people to respond.
yeah, exactly.
I've talked about this in some of my deck guides when I talk about equipment or auras. Sometimes things like that give people this window to do something that it might not even be the right decision for them to target your thing, but they're like, oh my God, I want to get him by doing this. So yeah, it's a telegraphed ability that they know is coming, right?
Hmm.
Encourages, I guess. Yeah, and
Yep.
that's a really dangerous one. So I think it's really smart of you to call this out because that's a big deal. This
Yeah.
gets into like psychology of game playing, and that's a very advanced concept, but I think something that's extremely important in Commander. So any other weaknesses you can think of?
I mean, just the natural like monocolor restriction too, I would
Mhm.
say is a weakness.
Okay, so like lower options.
Yeah, I mean, that automatically just
Yeah,
narrows down, so
yeah,
many cards.
good one. Anything else?
Let's say we have the must attack. Yeah, I mean, no, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Okay. The only other ones I think of are like no inherent protection, and sort of talked about that, but we haven't specifically laid it out. So like no ward, no hexproof, nothing like that. He has low toughness, which you mentioned, but like also it's very easy to target him.
Yeah.
He doesn't provide any card advantage specifically. I mean, he could, but like not necessarily. And I'd say in line with what you said about the deck being very dependent on him, he is also very dependent on you having something else. Like he can't work alone.
Yeah. Okay.
So not only is the deck reliant on him, he's reliant on having something else on board. Right, because if he's just out there, he doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
He can't even buff himself and give himself haste without another target.
Yes.
So
Okay.
let's put that with this one. Okay, so I think that covers it. So let's talk about opportunities. And I want to base these on the strengths for starters. But after we do threats, there may be some opportunities that we realize from this as well. So let's just go through the strengths one by one and see if we can figure out a corresponding opportunity. So the fact that he can copy legendaries, what kind of opportunity does that give us?
Well, I mean, legendary creatures are usually some of the best ones, so he can copy some very busted abilities.
Yeah, and we won't have to sack, right? So
Exactly. Yeah.
we sack to legend rule. Okay. So he gives a natural buff. What opportunity might that give us?
Just the ability to swing with big creatures early on, potentially by like, turn 4, the turn he comes down can swing with big,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah,
with high attack creatures.
yeah. And the other thing I think of in line with that is creatures with double strike are extremely good with GOGO, right? Because
Yeah.
giving a power buff to a double strike creature is like giving even more, twice as much power essentially, or even better,
Yeah.
right? So double
Hmm.
strikers, also like power matters creatures.
Yeah, like
And
something like
then
a copper dragon or something. Like
I
you
think you're
create
thinking of
that many.
Old Knobbone, but yes, exactly, something
Oh,
like
okay.
that.
Yeah.
That would make treasures equal to the amount of damage you dealt. Or there's a card called. What we can do is in the deck list, there's an Oracle tag, and you can figure these out by going to the Scryfall tagger. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because I know you know a little
Yeah.
bit about it, but if you search for a card that has a certain ability, you can find the related tags. So I happen to
Hmm.
know that the one that we're talking about is Power Matters. So we can just search for this and then find creatures that have this tag assigned to them. And we could
Oh,
like, look for creatures. We don't want to see this stuff necessarily, right? We want to see just
yeah.
creatures that care about power. And we see, oh, Krenko Tin Street Kingpin seems like it might be perfect here, right? Because it's like the other Krenko, except it's on attack, could be good redundancy with what we have. So you could spend time looking through the list in this such way. This is the creature I was trying to think of, by the way. Whenever an opponent casts
Okay.
a non-creature, and this is maybe not the best option because it really works best on opponents' turns, because
Yeah.
that's when they're going to be casting non-creature spells most of the time. But still, this is the kind of creature we want to see potentially. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So I'm gonna speed us along a little and just kind of like jump through this myself, but like stop me if you want to add anything. So
Okay.
haste, haste is obvious, right? The opportunity is that we play a creature without haste. and we give it haste. Mono red, the opportunities related to the deck being mono red are actually, there's a lot. Like we could play a card like Blood Moon. I don't encourage people to play Blood Moon. Actually, I think like the bracket 3 rules kind of preclude you from playing it, but there are other related things like that might care about you just having a bunch of mountains. For example, Scepter of Eternal Glory is one I really like. This card is, I love. This is a like main reason why I play monocolor decks, to be able to play this artifact, because it's so great. It's like a Thran Dynamo, except it makes colored mana. There'll be times where you just don't have the 3 lands, but it's pretty rare, especially when you're running a ton of basics. And I know you're already running Valakut, but that's an advantage to playing a mono red deck, that you can play this busted land that turns all your mountains into lightning bolts at some point. And then Extraplanar Lens is one I love. I play this in all my monocolored decks. You have to exile a land when it comes in, but then all of your lands make tap for double. Actually, all of everyone's lands tap for double. Anything with the same name as that land. So you'll notice actually in a lot of my monocolor decks, I'll play snow-covered lands, because if you exile a snow-covered mountain with Extraplanar Lens, then only lands named snow-covered mountain will tap for 2. And then it's much less likely that an opponent will randomly have a snow-covered mountain. That's just a tiny optimization thing, but like in general, this is a very powerful effect. It's a little risky because if someone removes it, then you've strip mined yourself, you've lost a land when you play this, but I think in general, this kind of card is worth it. And then there are some other things some other good opportunities for having monocolored, like Nykthos, which you're already playing, that really like pays off for monocolored decks. And Throne of Eldraine is a good one too. It's a 5 mana, but it can make 4 of any color, so like incredible mana rock, but you can only cast monocolored spells with it, so it doesn't work in 2 or more color decks very well. And it can also draw you cards if you need, so this is a great one for monocolored decks. And I'll share this file with you at the end, and I'll make sure it's like filled out and covers what we covered, so you'll have this for your records. And can copy attack triggers, so we want to play creatures with attack triggers. Wizards we can look at like later in deck building if we have time. Can do something right away, that's obvious. Copies remain till end of turn, we put down. Okay, so threats. So the threat is that people are going to remove him, right? Removal is a huge threat. And, you know, board wipes, like even small ones, are going to pick up GOGO. And as you mentioned, like his low toughness also means it's hard to attack potentially, right?
Yeah.
So as we put down threats, it's worth putting down opportunities that are related, because I think these are things we really want to sort out, I think, to make the deck be able to work. So how do we help against removal? Hexproof protection. Same thing with board wipes. Hard to attack, we can copy stuff with First Strike, Double Strike, because First Striker is very hard to block, right? Because especially when he gives a power buff, because all of a sudden it's a minimum 4 power First Striker. That means they need at least a 5 toughness blocker, or they can't really block very well. So you couldn't do that. You can copy stuff with evasion, so like flying, menace, maybe trample. Okay, so other threats, I think that pretty much covers it. I'd say like blockers in general. So like an opportunity to help deal with blockers might be like, they're called falter effects, which is stuff that says creatures can't block, or giving him evasion, right? Like Trailblazer's Boots is one. Or even better, there's, what is that Assassin's Creed one that's really good?
Brotherhood Regalia.
Yeah, exactly. So that helps with 2 things, right? Because it gives him evasion, but it also makes him have ward 2. So that covers 2 of the threats. So that's, you know, that's a big one, I'd say. So did this all make sense to you? Do you feel like this was helpful in terms of setting a foundation for what we want this deck to do?
Yes, it was.
Okay, good. So. Any questions or anything you feel like wasn't covered?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, if you think of anything, we can always come back to this, so no problem. All right, so let's get into goal setting. So I want to base the goals of what we want to do with the deck off this stuff. So I think, are there any specific things you want to keep in this deck, or, you know, not change or anything like that? Or are you fine with whatever to just make it better?
Yeah, I'm fine with whatever, just to make it better, because right now I'd say if it even does play like a true bracket 3, even with the 4 game changers, I would say it's very low bracket 3.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm fine with anything to make it more optimized or better.
Okay. Cool. All right, so let's jump into my deck building template real quick. I just want to cover this very briefly. I think, you know, I don't love templates in general. I think they're a very good starting point for new players, but you'll find all the time that there are decks that just break the template. This deck wants a lot more of this or a lot less of this. So I just want to say that I think these are all pretty broad generalities. And you should always feel like, especially with a deck that you're really familiar and comfortable with, that you can break these when you feel like it makes sense. But if you don't know what you're doing at first and you're just like, I want to throw together a deck that works well, I think it's pretty good to stick to these kind of numbers. Or you don't have to use my template. You can use, like I said, the command zone's got a good one. Whatever makes sense to you, I think it's just worth being thoughtful about what you've got in your deck, and that can help you if you're struggling. So I'd say mana and ramp, for aggressive decks 5 to 10, for most decks 10 to 20. I like to usually be around 15. Aggressive decks can have a lot less because you really care a lot more about curving out. But a deck like this, even though I'd say, or I guess let me ask you, Ryan, like, do you feel like this is an aggressive deck?
Yeah, the way it's set up, it kind of has to be, like, because I mean, I just don't, the way that I have it built currently, I find that once it gets to like turn 6 or 7, like you kind of talked about earlier, I can't even really attack. And by that point too, since like true card draw is so hard and mono red, like a lot of the time, I'm just playing like something that exiles the top 3 of my library and I have to play it that turn. So if I don't like hit something good, I'm just kind of mid to late game. It's very hard the way it's set up.
Okay, and the last thing you said there, the way it's set up, is I think the crucial thing, because I agree that the way you have the deck constructed right now feels aggressive, but I don't think this deck has to be aggressive. And we should define what it means to be aggressive, because of course this is an aggressive deck because it's mono red and it gives a buff and it gives haste. So like by nature, that involves a lot of themes of aggression. Haste implies that you're going to be attacking. And again, a power buff is implying like, hey, let's get in and smash some face, right? But what we don't need to do necessarily is assume that the deck needs to be built like an aggro deck, meaning like you probably don't care as much about ramp. You probably don't want board wipes because like you just care about flooding the board and curving out. So that, I think, and maybe this is why we shouldn't have skipped over the goals, because to me, first thing I do when I look at a commander, I say like, how much mana is it? It's 4 mana, right? So what's the ideal turns 1 through 4? Just like very broadly, like say you get the perfect hand, like, walk me through what might happen on the first 4 turns of the game. So ignore what opponents are doing. Just, we're talking about solitaire right now.
Yeah, so like, an opening hand, 2 lands, and either some sort of
don't worry about the hand, what's in your hand. Just like, let's talk about what you're playing on your turn. We're going to assume you have it all. So turn 1, what are you doing? Let's not say Soul Ring. Let's say like a normal hand. Land, go.
Maybe Faithless Looting.
I mean, don't even worry about that. It doesn't have to be perfect. So what are you doing turn 2?
Turn 2 with this deck, land and then some sort of filter, just to filter the bad cards out of my hand, like either exiling the top cards that I can play next turn or something of the sorts.
Okay, so here's where I don't agree necessarily.
Okay.
At least this is going to be my initial view of a deck like this. When I see a 4-mana commander in a non-green color, or really in any color, I think we can play this commander on turn 3 if we land a mana rock on turn 2, right? There's tons of 2 mana rocks. So if we go land 1, 2, and 3, hit all 3 of our land drops, play a mana rock on turn 2, then we can get our commander out turn 3. Now, you might come back, as you should, and be like, well, do we really want to just run our commander out on turn 3 when our commander relies on having another creature in play? Probably not, right? So maybe this is no longer the ideal. So you've jumped ahead to probably a smarter plan, which is to like do some setup instead. But I still think let's figure out what the perfect curve out is, and then we can back into what we want to do. So what is the best creature in your deck to copy with GOGO? Or like name a couple of the best creatures in your deck off the top of your head. Like, what do you think of?
Atali, Kranko, I think is a sneaky one.
Any 2 or 3 that you can think of, mana value?
Yes, Breaches, Eager Pillager.
Okay.
Early game Ragavan, I feel like is a good copy for 1. Professional Facebreaker.
Any 2s that you can think of?
No, I think the only 2 drops off the top of my head are Inti and Ornithopter, I think.
Let's
are the
take
only
a look.
2 drop
So I'm going
creatures
to
I
group
have.
by type and sort by mana value. So let's look at, got Ragavan, Inti, Ornithopter. So is copying Ornithopter or any, let's say you had another mana door creature, is that good?
No, not really, because I can only use it on instance.
Exactly.
Because they
and why
either
is that?
tap or attack.
Exactly.
Because they attack.
Yes, good point. So therefore, is this even a card we want in this deck? Just something
No,
to think about. You don't need to answer right now, but like I came to the same conclusion, which is like, oh, it's pretty cool to be able to copy a mana dork and then just use it second main. Wait, it has to attack, right? So maybe not. I see a big opportunity to have some more good creatures in the 1 and 2 mana slots to copy, because Inti is a good copy, but that's only 1 card out of 99, and Ragavan's only 1 card out of 99. So So I definitely would want to see more things that I can copy at those mana values.
Okay.
So let's add that to our goals. Okay. So let's pretend, since I don't want to move past this yet, let's pretend we've got like some good 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. Atali is great, but like that's not gonna happen early game.
Yeah.
So let's say we've got a turn 1 land, good creature. And you know, there might not be really any other good 1 mana creatures to copy, but I think it's worth it to look, because there will be plenty of times where you've got 5 mana and you're ready to play GOGO and you're like, damn, I wish I had a 1-drop to go with it. Or you've got 4 mana and like in an ideal curve out, you can go turn 1 land, Dragavan, turn 2 land, Mana Rock, turn 3 land, GOGO, boom, copy Ragavan. Like, that's a hell of a good start, right?
Yeah.
You've played your commander on turn 3, a turn early, and the really powerful thing about playing a 4 mana, so I'd say like 4 mana is probably the median mana value of like any, if you take like the aggregate of all commanders, I'd say 4 is probably the most common.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's right, but I think it's either 4 or 3, one of those
seems
two.
True.
So the huge thing about accelerating your 4 mana commander out a turn early is that, yes, people are going to want to remove him, but are they going to not play their commander in order to just remove yours? Probably not. Yeah, they're going to prioritize their own game plan, because people are in their own head and they just want to play their own game. And
they want to play the deck they made.
Exactly. They're not as concerned about like external factors. So if you can play your commander a turn earlier than everyone, even if you're going last, you're just protecting it in such a way that like they're going to be wanting to do something else and not spend their mana on removal. So I think that's very important, and I want that to be a goal of the deck, is like more 2 mana rocks, because even if you don't want to just run your commander out on turn 3, a 2 mana rock on either turn 2 or 3 can still, even if you don't have this curve, let's say you just go land, go, and then land, mana rock, and now on turn 3, instead of playing GOGO, we've got 4 mana available. We could play a good 4 mana creature like Krenko or whatever else. Or, you know, another mana rock, like let's say we go land Thran Dynamo. Now we're heading into turn 4 in this ideal setup with how much mana? Assuming we play another land, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah.
So we would have 7 to 8, depending on if we hit a land, mana available, which would mean we could drop GOGO plus Breaches or GOGO plus Krenko. So, you know, are you going to get this draw every time? Of course not. But it's really helpful to envision some curve outs that can help you get to what you want to be doing more frequently. And then it also really helps you figure out what to cut, because you're like, well, this card doesn't like contribute to any of these game plans that we thought through. And another thing, I'll just cut to the chase here. The direction I think that it makes most sense to go with this deck is not curving out with everything ASAP. I think, you know, that's going to happen occasionally. You'll get a draw that makes that work. But I think, to me, the way I would build this deck is as a like very mid-rangey. So with an emphasis on a lot of mana, this is the kind of curve I like to see, because this can be a blowout, right? You land Krenko on turn 4 and make, how many goblins are you making? You know,
goblins. The turn that Krenko comes out.
Yeah, because they're 2 goblins, and yeah, they make 2 + 4. And then God forbid that they live until the following turn, then it could just be GG, right? So that's one thing that could happen. And how many other ways can we enable that happening? And also, what else could we be doing in these 4 turns if we're not going to be playing our commander as soon as possible?
Just casting
board
creature. Or board wipe. That makes
board
sense.
Wipe.
And just reset everybody.
You run like 7 board wipes in here. You just play mana rocks, and then you board wipe. And then there's traditional ways to get card advantage, which is like drawing cards, playing the play from exile stuff. But there's also playing a blasphemous act for 1 mana and killing 13 creatures. That's a 13 for 1 in your favor. Now, it's not drawing cards, but it's certainly setting everyone else back pretty substantially. Does that make sense? So I think we don't have enough time in this session to really like dedicate to picking one of the 2 directions to go with this deck. But I think what I want you to do going forward is do exactly what we just did, which is dedicate some time to just analyzing what the commander does and like figuring out, envision what the turns might look like or what you want the deck to look like, because this is one way that I just described, bunch of mana rocks, bunch of board wipes, but you could also just jam in a bunch of really good 1 and 2 mana creatures and instead focus on slamming some like really early attacks and like getting in. That's
Yeah.
a way
Okay.
this deck can work too. Now that we've talked about that and looked at the template a little, I want to look at your deck and maybe we can see which direction yours is leaning and where the issues might be. So I know that you didn't have this deck in a deck builder at all, right? Prior to this coaching, because you needed to get it entered, right?
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
did you
No.
have it on a
I did
different site?
not.
You didn't have it at all.
Nope.
Okay, so
Nope.
when you build a deck, do you just build it on your desk, like with the cards you've got available, where you're pulling in stuff? Tell me what your deck building process looked like for this deck. And I'm
No. So.
not throwing any shade, by the way. I'm just like, I want to
Oh no.
understand like what you did.
Yeah, no, for sure. So yeah, I mean, so long story short, I heard Rachel from the command zone talking about how much fun she had playing Go-Go, and then I
Okay.
packed them. So I was like, okay, cool. And then I went to the game store and essentially just kind of bought some like mono red creatures that I felt like had cool combat abilities. And then so I just kind of built it that way.
Okay.
And then just added stuff that I already had from my collection.
Okay. So I would say more of a bottom up method in that you like found cards you liked that would fit in. You threw those in and then you filled out the rest of the deck with stuff from your collection. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's totally fine. Like it's going to work, but I would strongly encourage you to try at least once. I don't expect you to do it every time. And, I think it's fun to build decks digitally, but I also enjoy throwing together a physical deck and like doing this sort of method that you've just described. And I don't want to take away the pleasure of the game, but I think there are a lot of advantages to using a deck building site first, not the least of which is that a lot of times I'll build a deck and I'll like do some playtest hands and I'll be like, you know what? I don't like this deck. Like it's working, but I'm not enjoying it. And then, okay, like I just saved myself hundreds of dollars in singles that I didn't own. Because sometimes, like in your head, I'm sure this has happened to you, you think like, oh, this is going to be so fun and it's going to work so well. And maybe it does work well or not, but you're just like, I don't like this. Like, this is not my style. And I'm not saying that's true of this deck. I'm just saying like it'll happen. And I think that is one advantage to building digitally first. And then the other advantage is we have, what EDHREC is?
Yes.
Okay. So EDHREC, just for anyone who doesn't know, it's like an aggregator. It pulls, so if, I don't want to spend a lot of time looking at it, but if we go to EDHREC and we look at GOGO, it's going to, if we don't add any filters, it's going to pull all of the deck lists where it scrapes from, which is like everywhere. Every deck building site you can think of, they'll scrape from all of those and they'll say, okay, there's 418 GOGO decks, somewhere online that it's pulling from. And then of those 418 decks, what are the most common cards that are being run? So if we go down to top cards, Chaos Warp and Blasphemous Act and Ruby Medallion. These are the three most popular cards in GOGO decks. Now, sometimes we'll see data that we don't want or cards we don't want, but like this will at least give us a pretty good idea of what makes sense for our deck. And then Moxfield, which is the deck building site I like, but I think others have this feature too. They have this button here, this EDHREC button. And what this will do is like, let's just start a deck from scratch real quick. Okay, so if I just hit this button now, it's not going to work because it says you don't have any cards in your deck. Because what it does is it looks for the cards that are in your deck and it tries to find the most commonality with what you're currently playing. So if I add just one card, because I know I want to play Soul Ring, and then I hit this button, it's just going to give me the most popular EDHREC cards. So it gave us Arcane Signet first. I don't know why that wasn't listed in the site, but who cares? We know we probably want it, right?
Yeah.
And this is exactly how I build a deck. I add the cards that I know I want to play, and then I hit the EDHREC button. And eventually, the more you do this, the more you'll discover like the cards you do and don't want. But you can just add this. And then if you see one like, oh, Braid, I'm not sure, you could say options, put in the sideboard or put it in considering so you can see it later. And then it'll tell you if you've got it there. And then the more you do this, like the more cards you add, the more the recommendations will be refined when you click the button again. So now if I click it again, it's going to give me different recommendations because it's going to look at the most common deck lists that have these cards that I'm already playing. So I think this is a really helpful way to build a deck because there'll be times where, there's a card you really want to play, but you end up cutting it at the last minute. And that could be a $40 card that you don't have to buy. So I'd recommend trying out this method at least once, because I think it'll be helpful for you. Let's look at my version, or let's finish looking at your version actually. And I want to look at it by category. Right now we're grouped by types, so planeswalkers, creatures, sorceries, etc. But what I like to do when I'm evaluating a deck list, and I'm sure you already know this, but like I would add my own custom types and tags to understand how close we are to maybe these ideals. And again, like these aren't always going to be perfect for every deck, but it's at least it gives you a decent understanding of if you're too heavy on one particular area or you need to bolster one particular area. So I'm going to flip over to my types and tags. If you did this with your exact same deck list, nothing's going to pop up for you unless you've put in types and tags for cards before, because all of these are, hand entered. Like I've painstakingly gone through and like added all of these categories. But the nice thing about it is if you've done it once, then it's done forever for that particular card, because I'm just going to hold shift and click on this card, which is the same as me clicking here and going to change tags. These tags, custom tags, see these like hashtag exclamation point versus hashtag no exclamation point? These global tags will apply to every single deck you build. So I have all of these tags as global because I want anytime I add a myriad landscape to my deck, it to apply all of these tags. But if we felt like this deck wanted some specific tag that I wouldn't necessarily want to see in other decks, and I rarely use these, but you could add a deck specific tag to say like, this is a card we looked at in coaching, right? And now like this tag will apply to this deck, but not if I add Myriad Landscape to a new deck, it's not going to show this one, but it will show all of these. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So the more you do this, the less often you have to do it when you create a new deck. I don't have anything that's untagged right now. And there were some things that were untagged when I took your deck list and I copied it, because there are cards I hadn't played before. But in general, I only had like 7 or so I had to add tags for. So like this is, I'll just tell you right now, this is a lot of work up front, but I feel like it does save a lot of time in the long run. Okay, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on like how I do my categorization. You can do this in the way that makes most sense to you. It doesn't have to be as detailed as I have it, but I do find this to be helpful like when I'm in a game and I'm like, shit, I need to know like all the ways I have to gain life, because that's the only way I might not lose this game. And I'll scroll to life gain and be like, oh dang, I don't have any. I guess I'm dead, Or like land destruction is a good example, right? Like there's a land on the board that's just totally screwing me. Like what ways do I have to deal with it? Okay, I have these 3. I'm going to try to dig for them or whatever. Or I didn't even remember that Chaos Warp, could target land. And now this is helpful for that reason. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, types and tags, and I just want to look at like kind of the big categories. So I'm going to just go through alphabetically. So board wipes is the first I usually look at. So you've got 4 that I've labeled as board wipes. Blasphemous Axe, great, like always run it in red decks, I think. Ashling. So Ashling, I think, I get it. It's kind of an effect that we could take advantage of in second main, sort of like Caldera Pyrama. But I think one of the things I noticed about your deck is that it doesn't have a lot of focus. You've got a lot of different themes, and the pieces may come together sometimes, but in general, like I'd say pick a direction and go for that. A lot better to try to pick a focus and like lean into it than, the expression jack of all trades, master of none. That is what it feels like with commander decks sometimes to me. If you try to just make it like generally good and have a lot of different directions it could go, it feels like none of them ever end up being that great. Whereas if you just say like, I want this deck to be all about dragons, like that's all I'm going to do, then first of all, it's a lot easier to build and also like figure out what to cut. But then also it just tends to be stronger and more fun because like exactly what your plan is and you're just like gonna execute it. So this card I see as being a good card if we go for a like spell casting route, like a spell slinger sort of route, which I think is a viable way to build this. But I think what I see from this deck list is a lot of directions, and what I would encourage you to do, and we're not going to do it today, I just want you to think about this, is pick one direction and go for it.
Okay.
All right, let's move on. These all look fine. Insurrection's a little heavy for, I think it's an excellent card. Like this is a game-winning card, no question. But are you going to be able to cast it more often than it's going to get stuck in your hand and lose you the game because it's not another card? And I don't know the answer to that, but like when I see 33 land plus Insurrection, that just concerns me a little bit. 33 is like the amount of lands I would run in a pretty aggressive deck, and Insurrection like could maybe exist in such a deck, like if you had a lot of ramp. You've got 11 sources plus 9 treasure sources, which are kind of like temporary ramp. This is a lot of mana. So I feel like I haven't said this yet, and I do want to say this. I feel like you have constructed this deck very well from a like balance perspective. I think you've got a good amount of removal. You've got like a good amount of draw and draw engines, and a like very good amount of ramp. So I wanted to compliment you on that because like I see a lot of decks and I help a lot of people with decks, and they're not always this balanced. So I think very good job on that.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean it's perfect. There are a lot of opportunities, and I think a lot of the stuff I talked about still applies, which is like pick a direction and go for it, and you're just going to have an easier time. So let's keep going. Yeah, so I mean, that pretty much covers it. You have like, this may be a little low, but not bad. Like 8 is fine. I think I put 5 to 8 or 5 to 10 here. Yeah, 5 to 10 is reasonable. Treasure, mana ramp. Yeah, so like the only notable thing I see is that 33 looks too low. And then if we scroll down and look at your curve, so you're heaviest on 4s. Tell me what the problem with that is.
That's the same cost as my commander.
Exactly. So now, less of a problem in this deck. Why? If you don't know, it's fine. Just say.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I would say because we don't want to be playing our commander on 4, like we talked about, right? So like normally I'd say like you don't want 4s because on turn 4 you know what you want to be doing. It's playing your commander, right? But in this deck, you don't want to just be running your commander out as soon as you have 4 mana, because that's just asking to be removed. And sometimes you'll need to do that. And like maybe you can just feel it out by game. But I would say in general, I would avoid doing that because it's just so vulnerable and like it's very all in. And if GOGO gets removed without you getting any value off him at least once, that's just a recipe for disaster. So something to think about at least. Like in general, this curve looks pretty good though. I'd say like typically you want to see something like maxing out at 2s and then starting to come down like that.
Okay.
That's what most of my decks look like, or 2s and 3s being tied. 4 is usually the most congested spot. So that's something to consider when you're looking to make cuts. And another nice thing about a deck builder like this is you can just say, group by mana value, show me all the 4s, and I could just make a cut like this. In fact, this is very often what I'll do when I'm looking to make cuts and I don't know what to do. I'll go to this mana value sort, and I'll just start at the top. And I'll try to cut like 1 from each of the like heaviest stuff, because most of the time people have too much heavy stuff and not enough like of the low stuff. And you know, it sucks because like sometimes the heaviest stuff is the most fun, but it's also like not very fun if you just never get to play the game. So something to think about. I do want to look at my list, and I'll send these both to you. Again, like I just threw this together. It's not perfect. I haven't even tested it, but I just did what we talked about, which was like ran the EDHREC thing a few times, looked at what the options were and said like, okay, well actually before I did that, I cut the stuff that I felt like I didn't love or felt like didn't make a lot of sense or was too like specific a direction that I wasn't necessarily a fan of. So I'm going to show you what those cuts are by doing this compare. So I'm going to hit compare, and I'm going to search for your deck list. Here, I named it like this, so it would be easy. But if you didn't have this, you could also just copy the deck link and paste it in like that. So this is a really cool feature of Moxfield that I like. And this is also really helpful when you're deck building, because if you have another mono red deck, like I compared to my Clive deck because it's also mono red, and this deck doesn't necessarily want all the cards that deck wants, but it will have a lot of commonalities, or at least some. So that'll help me like grab some cards that I know I want. So then like if I were, let me just show you real quick. So if I were comparing, and you could compare it to my deck list, even if you have nothing to do with them. If you say like, oh, I really like Matt's Clive deck, so I want to potentially copy it, you could just open up my list, copy the link, and then drop it in to compare. And it's going to show you cards unique to Clive, then cards unique to your list, and then cards that are shared in both. So then you could say, okay, here are the cards that Clive is running. Ooh, I really like this, and I have one. Let me click that and add it to my main deck or put it in my sideboard. So this is a really helpful way to build decks too. So I want to just compare to your original list so we can see the changes that I made. So 38 cards difference, right? Meaning I cut 38 cards and I added 38 new ones. So a lot of changes. Like I said, you don't need to take this deck list and copy it. I just want you to understand how to do this stuff, because I think it will help you a lot in terms of like your deck building in the future. So I want to talk quickly about some of the things I cut, because you might have questions. Like Faithless Looting is a card that I don't like. This card. Like I'll just be honest with you. This is card disadvantage, right? Because you're drawing 2 and discarding 2. That's net 0, right? So how is this card disadvantage?
Yeah, because you're getting rid of a card in your hand to do.
Exactly. This is a card to do that. So now I'm not going to tell you like there are no advantages to playing this, because it does help you like sculpt hands, and it's possible I should be playing this more often. I know a lot of people like it. I'm just not the hugest fan, but I think if you end up deciding you like my idea of having this be more of a mid-range deck, which is how I've built this, maybe it does make sense to add this back. That being said, I don't play it that often, but I could be wrong. I cut Breach and gamble, but you could play them like I just did.
Okay.
Not all the stuff necessarily has a specific reason. Chandra, I would avoid playing Planeswalkers if I were you, like pretty much period. There are like a couple of very small exceptions, like Oko, Thief of Crowns is busted. Dak Faden is really good. But the best ones, I would say, you almost want to treat like a legendary sorcery. Like, you're going to play it and use one of the abilities and then assume it's going to die. So if you assumed that you only got to play this and do one thing, is it worth it? I'm not looking for a yes or no to that question. I just want you to have that thought process when you consider playing a Planeswalker. Because it's basically begging people to kill it. And in a deck like this, where you're probably not going to have a lot of blockers, I think this can be a too much of an investment for what you're actually getting. I cut the Ashling because I felt like I wanted to go more of an attack route, and I cut a lot of the dragon stuff, like especially the stuff that didn't feel like it worked that well with what GOGO does. Bonehorde Drakazor, like this card would be great, but it never lives, right? Like it's just like gonna eat removal, and like even if you're able to copy it, it doesn't do anything till your upkeep. So I feel like it just didn't make a ton of sense with GOGO. That being said, like it's a great card, and if you do land it and keep it, it can be really powerful. So I'm trying to talk through why I cut certain things. Utvara Hellkite, like it's just too expensive, but it's really good. It's going to make you 2 6/6s automatically. This might be worth adding back. The Pyrama, I only cut it. I think it's a great idea, and it's really cool that the things keep the counters. I just wanted to go more like creature heavy, really. And then I cut the full throttle because there are some really great creature options I found using the EDHREC thing. So you can look through this more later. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but I want to talk about some of the things I added. A lot of them were from EDHREC. Like this one is perfect for this deck because it's card advantage, it's burn, it's a huge 5/5 flying to copy for only 5 mana. Karlach is nuts. This is going to give you 2 additional combats, for only 5 mana. There are a lot of like gems that I found with the EDHREC thing. This is $1, and this card is insane in this deck because like Afflict is pretty cool, first of all, on GOGO, because it like it's a disincentive for them to block because it's going to cause them to lose life. But yeah, Neheb is just crazy. Like this is probably the best card that you could be playing that you're not currently playing because if you have 2 of them, and let's say you're able to hit with both of them, like that's 12 damage you're dealing in combat, right? And then you're gonna make 24 red in your second main. Yeah. So like, makes sense? Any questions?
No. Yeah, I saw the Dragonhawk, the Neheb, and the Baylor, and the Prosperous Bandit. I've pretty much because I have been like trying to like look up like what other people are doing. With GOGO, and it seems like those are in every single, like they're almost auto includes in the GOGO.
I don't love just like always copying what other people are doing. I really like, and if we had a lot more time, I would teach you a lot more about how I build decks. But shout out to my deck building series, my Edgar Markov one, and I know you've seen some or all of it, but it's just packed full of info on like how to find the specific things that you like using the Scryfall tagger. And I think that's like one of the most powerful ways you can build a deck because you can figure out what are the things that I like. What is your favorite thing to do in the deck, and like what are more effects like that? Or if you discover, and like search for those yourself, because yes, people will catch some of the obvious ones like Neheb and the Treasure Bandit and all that, but you'll also find some of your own stuff. And that's what's so satisfying about deck building, when you discover something that is like fantastic that other people aren't necessarily playing a lot of. So I don't want to discount that and just tell you, always copy what other people are doing, because groupthink is a real thing, and some people are just playing bad cards that I think don't make a lot of sense. So it's hard to balance, but I think it's worth at least looking what they're doing and then incorporating some of your own ideas as well, which I think is what you're doing right now. So that's great. Okay. I want to do some Mulligan practice. Do you want to practice on your original deck list or on my revised deck list? I would say, I don't know if I have an opinion. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, maybe do like a couple on both, maybe, perhaps. Because I mean, realistically, I don't. I mean, it'll take me a while to get those cards in, the ones that I do have from yours. So I'm sure I'll play this again as is.
Okay. And, take a look, because you might have some of these already. Like some of them are from the precon, or if you need help with some specific cuts just to add some things that you have right now, let me know based on what we talked about. Or if you just need some help with like general direction, because I wanted to spend more time on that, but like this time goes so fast.
Of course, yeah.
All right, so let's get into some Mulligan practice. So, all right, so let's hit playtest. All right, so I want you to evaluate the hand, assume that we're on our first 7. So if we mulligan this hand, then we're going to a second 7. And we don't know who our opponents are. So
Okay.
tell me if you think you would keep this or not, and why.
I don't think I would keep this. Just because, I mean, what Star Athlete's 3? So I mean, I'm pretty much relying on drawing a land on my first 3 draws, which I mean should, but if I don't, then I'm absolutely way behind curve, I feel.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
so
I
I don't
mean,
think
we
I would
could
keep
we could
this.
cast the March to find more land, but like this is opening 7, we can do better for sure, right? I
Yeah.
agree. So let's look at our new one. All right, how about this one? So it's this, or we're going to 6. So what do you think?
I think I would keep it if it had one more land in place of something else, just because of the 2 mana ramp, and
Yeah,
then I would still have the ability
and we could
to
draw.
draw cards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
But with it only having 1 land, I think I would still mulligan that.
I think you're absolutely right. I agree. Okay, here's our 6.
Yeah. Now this is where it kind of sucks because I don't know if it's worth going down to 5, but also this hand, like, I mean, it's not good, but at least it does have 3 lands and something to do on turn 3 to potentially, to guarantee that 4th land to hit GOGO or a 4 mana creature. So I
Yeah,
probably would keep that.
yeah, I think you nailed it. Rough hand, but I don't know. If I had more confidence in the deck, like I knew there were a lot of 2 mana rocks and a lot of potentially good hands, I might toss this one and go to 5. But, I just want to just go back to the deck list naturally. So I'm going to flip over to types and tags and say, like, all right, are we sorted by mana value? We are. Okay, so 2 mana rocks. You've got only 2 right now. You've got Fire Diamond and Ornithopter of Paradise. So, like, where's Arcane Signet?
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
so, and that's fine. Like, just an oversight, like, no big deal. But, like, you definitely want, even though we don't want to curve out into GOGO on turn 3, I still think 2 mana rocks are ultra important. And I would try to get in at least, like, 3 or 4 more of them. I think doing it, if all you did after this coaching was, let's sort by mana value. So if you just went and cut like this, one of these, and, like, let's say you cut 7 cards, just like 7 of the mana value 4 through 8 cards. And then you added 3 land and 4 2 mana rocks. All of a sudden, the deck will be 25% better.
Okay.
So that right off the bat would be my recommendation. And like you can always slot these back in, like as once the deck works, then it becomes a lot easier to like start to add back in the stuff you like. But Shivan Dragon's just bad. It's it's cool, and it's like a classic, so I think it's sweet that you're running it. Actually really thought it was cool, but it's not good. This rate is no longer even close to passable, so like that's an easy cut. Unless you love it, like then keep it, because you can play whatever the hell you want. It's your deck. But if you just want the deck to be smooth, that would be what I did. Okay. So long story short, back to this. Given that like we have so few draws into like, I guess what I'm trying to ask is like, we talked about the like perfect curve out, right? For, this is one way and there's another way with a Ragavan, right? How many of those draws do you actually have with this current list? And like based on this current list, what are we looking for in terms of like a great draw? Obviously, like any hand Soul Ring is great. We know that. But like you're not going to get that many Soul Ring hands. So like what is a great early start? I don't need you to answer that right now. I want you to have at least some draws that feel great. So think about that, like when you're building a deck, like how many cards am I loving to see on turns 1 through 3? And if the answer is like less than 10, you probably want more.
Yeah. Okay.
So long story short, I'm like super on the fence with this hand. I'd say like, let's just keep it. But I agree. It looks like quite bad.
Yeah, it's a sad keep. Yeah, for sure.
I'm not, I don't even want to play it out because like, it's just going to be slow. So let's just start over. We're on our first 7 again.
Okay.
All right. So this is our first 7. So go ahead. Tell me your thoughts before I say anything.
This one I would probably keep just because it does have a form of ramp with Myriad Landscape. And then also since I have like hardly any protection in GOGO, and I know that, it's also got the protection there as well.
Yeah, totally agree.
Great.
Like given how the deck is built, I think you've got 3 of your best cards that you can see in your opener in Mirrored Landscape. This is a turn 1 play, believe it or not. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that's how a good way to think about it, because you don't really want to be playing this on other turns. And this standing in for a turn 1 play is totally fine. And then you've got power.
Yeah,
You know, the only problem with playing this turn 1 is you can't play power balance turn 2, right?
Yeah.
And you really want to get power balance down right away. So I think that is a conflict in this hand that I hadn't thought about until I really thought about, like, what am I going to do turns 1 and 2? So that's what I would think through. Instead of just looking at the hand, think like, okay, what am I playing turn 1? What am I playing turn 2? And as you went through that thought process, if you hadn't already, like I hadn't realized that, oh shit, I can't play this land first. Well, I don't know. Would you play this land first, or would you start with a mountain if you kept this hand? Let's keep it. So we're drawing.
Yeah.
All right, tell me what you're playing.
So now that I've drawn a mountain, honestly, like I probably, like you said, I would switch up, I think, and just go ahead and play the mountain just to get the power balance out
What if we
early.
hadn't drawn the mountain?
Then I would go tap to Myriad Landscape and
Why?
just for to guarantee the ramp on turn 2.
Turn 3.
Or
You can't sack this till turn 3.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
This is exactly why I think it's worth spend a second, think about what you're going to do your first 2 turns, because if you made this mistake in your head and then you started to think through it, you're like, okay, I'll play this tapped. Next turn I play a mountain, then I sack the Myriad Landscape, and you're like, oh wait, I can't pay
Yeah.
2. You know, one shortcut I'd encourage you to try when you look at a land with a tap ability is to assume it costs 1 more than it says here. Because
yeah.
since the land can tap for mana, that's an opportunity cost of tapping it for a non-mana ability.
Mm-hmm.
So when people look at a card like, you know, War Room is a good example, right? Cost 3 and tap to draw a card.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually like 4 mana to do that. Because if you've got 4 land out, one of them's War Room. If you're using the War Room to draw a card, you just spent all 4 of your mana that you could have tapped all those 4 lands for 4, or instead you could tap those 4 lands to draw a card. So a helpful shortcut that I've found to think about stuff like this. Anyway, I think it's a toss-up. I think what you're saying is valid. Like, it still applies here, right? You get this down turn 1. Well, like, here's the thing. Like, you don't necessarily need to make this decision on turn 1. Because, like, regardless of what we draw, let's say we don't even know what we're going to draw. If I play a mountain first, then I guess the cost is that we can't play Lightning Greaves, right? This is really what's going to come down to. So either we're playing mountain, and then we're playing mountain power balance, and then we're playing Myriad Landscape, and then we can't sack it till the following turn, or we're starting with Myriad Landscape tapped, and then we're playing this. We can't play power balance, but we can play Lightning Greaves, which is good. And then this turn, we're dropping a land, sacking the landscape. This seems a lot smoother than the opposite, right?
Yeah, it does.
So unfortunately, these two conflict pretty badly, which is sad because these are the best parts about the hand, both of these 2 cards. And then this is dead, right? Forever.
Yeah.
So I almost think like this might be a mulligan. However, I think, again, I don't mean offense by this, but I think the way the deck is constructed right now, you have so few good draws that I would keep this hand anyway, even though there are a lot of internal conflicts with it. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Let's go to the new list so we can see, like, just get a feel for how it operates a little bit differently. And I want to just compare what we were looking at. So, like, here's our ramp now, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you have Wayfarer's Bauble?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
So I really like Wayfarer's Bauble in monocolored decks because of extraplanar lands. The more basics you can find, the better, because of this card, and also the Scepter, right?
Yep. Okay.
Also, like, just a nice turn 1 play is awesome, and the Bauble can do that. And then we've got, like, you probably even want more than this. Like, I cut Fire Diamond, but, like, Fire Diamond's not bad. But there's a bunch of colorless ones. This deck's one thing we didn't talk about that we should have put in the strengths. In fact, let me just add it real quick, is that low color intensivity. This is kind of a big deal for a monocolor deck because it means that, you know, a land like Myriad Landscape or other colorless lands, utility lands, will be less detrimental to you, and you can play more colorless mana rocks and it won't be bad. Versus if you're playing something like Clive that cares a lot about having pips or devotion, this is such a low, you know, a 25% ratio of color to generic mana. That's so forgiving. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that means you could run a lot more like random 2 mana rocks just by nature of them being 2 mana rocks. All right, so let's play test this one. Okay, so take a look at this hand, take some time to read the cards if you don't know them, because I know that some of these are new to you, and then tell me if you like this hand or not and why.
I think I would keep it just based on our conversation earlier about with like what the ideal hand. Like this hand gives us the ability by turn 5 instead of 4, but by turn 5, we're gonna have access to 8 mana, assuming we draw a mountain between now and a mountain or two now and then with the Myriad Landscape and the Thran Dynamo. And so ability, it still kind of sets it up to where we can play GOGO and Parapet Thrasher on the same turn.
Yeah. I mean, I think I agree with you. The only thing I would say is that this hand is very all in. It doesn't give you any options, right? It's got a linear plan that you can't really deviate from as it currently exists. This is a lot more of a complex answer. I think this is a good hand and it's going to serve you well. And I think most people would say keep this hand. I think at a very advanced level, this might be a mulligan because it forces you in one direction, which is like I have to play my stuff and attack and hope that a board wipe doesn't happen, right? Because you've got no protection and you've got no removal. So those are two pretty big holes. And depending on who you're up against, like how badly you need removal, there's some commanders that just like you have to keep a removal hand or you're going to lose. Like against something like Miriam Sentinel Worm. If you don't remove Miriam when they play it, you're going to lose. Like that's just often how the game will go, in my experience at least. So long story short, I think this is a good keep and I don't fault you for it, but in the very long run, I think be a lot more long-term about your thinking. And this still might be a keep, honestly. This hand looks great. And any hand with Thran Dynamo just feels so good. I don't know if you've played this card in any other decks, but like, I feel like this is one of the most underrated cards in Commander. It just feels insane. Like every time you land it and it doesn't get removed, it's just like, how do you lose? All right, so let's play it out. So we draw Lelia. So what are we playing here?
I think I'm playing the tapped land first.
Yeah, don't overthink it. Totally. We're not gonna like play a mountain in hopes that we draw a power balance that I actually cut from the deck that you might not have even known.
It's kind of a pet card for me.
Yeah, and like you can certainly add it back. Like I just was cutting kind of honestly, I was just like rushing to get this done before we met. So like don't assume my deck list is perfect by any means.
Okay.
All right, so here's our next turn. Obviously we're playing a mountain because there's no other choice.
Mountain.
And then no place, right?
Yeah, just have to sit.
All right, so this is one I added. It's basically a counter spell that like gives them a free thing to replace it. All right, so
so mountain and now crack the Myriad Landscape.
Why?
I mean, I think that
I'm not saying you're wrong. I just want to did you consider the other two plays?
Between Lelia and Krenko.
You have three options here, right? 1, 2, 3. So
to potentially hold up mana for
you just automatic. Well, yeah, that is a slight nod in the favor of this plan. That the fact that you get to keep this up. I would not really like consider that. Don't hold up mana for a counterspell when you have an active play. Almost ever. Yeah. Unless you literally know what's coming because like they tutored something to the top and you could see it. Like they mystical tutored and found a toxic deluge and you know you need to stop it. Like that's the time you hold up mana for a counterspell. But like otherwise, like definitely lean toward an active play, especially something like Lelia. I'm not saying Lelia is the right play, but like Lelia is a great play because she gets bigger right away. She's got natural haste, which normally is not that helpful in this deck because GOGO gives haste, but right now it's great because like now the disadvantage to playing Lelia this turn is that if anything she exiles, you're not going to be able to play. Literally anything. I don't think you have a single 0 in this deck and you've already played a land this turn. So that's a reason not to play Lelia. The reason to play Lelia is that she will get bigger when you exile that card at least. And then we have the option to play GOGO next turn, copying Lelia. So like think about, before you answer me, I'm not trying to, by the way, anything I've said so far is not meant to push you in any direction, but this is a really important turn. And I want you to think before you answer about what you're going to do this turn and what you're going to do next turn, assuming we have no clue what opponents are doing.
Okay. I really, thinking about it, like I feel like I don't think it makes sense to cast Lelia. I think it's unfortunately just kind of going to sit in the hand. But I think there's really only two options. Either cast Krenko this turn, and then turn 4, just make the tough decision. If there's like a open, if there's somebody open, then swing with, play a land, cast Thran Dynamo, and swing with Krenko. If nobody's open, I think play Mountain and then cast GOGO, and then like copy to where you could for sure get in with Krenko and just build up a board.
Right. And then, so let's say you went with Krenko and then you played GOGO next turn. What will happen when we attack with both of these creatures?
They're both going to get +3 +0, right? Yeah, because they each get a 1/1 counter, and then yeah, so we're gonna get 8 1/1 goblins on turn 4.
Is that good?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, that's 8. I mean, that's 8 chump blockers. I mean, it doesn't give.
Let me ask you this. Like, this is really important, by the way. This, I think, is like the most critical and important thing we've talked about like today. So I really want to spend a lot of time on this hand. I think this is a like beautiful example. And I don't necessarily know what the right answer is, but here's what I think. Do you have a way? Is it really good to make 8 goblins next turn? For sure.
Yeah.
Is that going to lead to you winning that game? You don't know the future and you don't know what opponents are doing. However, do you have any ways to like capitalize on making 8 goblins next turn besides just having a bunch of chump blockers and attack like small attackers? We don't have any like ways to buff the team in our hand. We don't have Perforos that could like weaponize making all of those goblins. So you having 8 1/1s on turn 4, I would almost venture to say that that is more of a liability than a positive thing.
Just puts a target.
Yeah. And is that target warranted? Maybe, because they don't know what's in your deck, right? Because all it takes is for you to, if they do nothing about it, and then the following turn you're making 10 goblins, right? Because now they have the +1 counters from last time. Opponents are not going to know what you're up to. They just know that, oh, holy shit, this guy just made 8 1/1s and attacked me for 8 on turn 4. And next turn he's going to make 10 1/1s. When in fact, like, we don't have any ways to really abuse that. In fact, without ways to abuse it, should we even be playing either of the Krankos? I don't know the answer to this question, and it's like really a lot more of a long-term like thought experiment and something I want you to like think about when you're considering how to build the deck, and to consider like what you do with the threat, the apparent threat level of what you do, like how it's appearing. Okay. These are like very important concepts with regard to the game of Commander that I feel like not a lot of people talk about, but are like ultra important. Okay. No one seems to think it's a threat when someone plays Kodama's Reach turn 2 into Cultivate turn 3, and now all of a sudden they've got 10 land in play. But God forbid you make 6 goblins and everyone's like fucking got their pitchforks out, right?
Yeah.
This is how it goes. Can you talk your way out of it? Maybe. But like, should you even be doing this? I don't think so. I think the right play here is what you said at first that I like steered you away from. But I wanted to talk through all these things because I think this is this is a turning point of any game. If you go this path, you're going to lose this game. Like, I almost guarantee you, because you have no way to follow up on this. Someone's going to knock out your commander. They're going to knock out Kranko or knock out your commander or board wipe. And then you're like way behind, right?
Yeah.
Or they don't, and you just make more goblins the following turn, and now everyone's trying to kill you. It's 3v1. And you don't have any way to close out the game. You just have a bunch of, like, you have 18 1/1s, but, like, that's not going to win you the game. So, So think about the best case scenarios of what your plays could lead to and, like, how you would perceive it if it was happening across from you, especially if you didn't know their deck list. And let that help inform your decisions. So I think, long story short, the best play here is to crack Mirrored Landscape. Now, there are some like game situations that would dictate a different decision, I think. Like I said, keeping up the trickery might matter. Playing a creature might matter for some reason. Like, let's say someone played an EDHREC by Master of Trust. Every time you hit with a creature, you get to draw a card.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So EDHREC is like that, but for everyone. So if someone played an EDHREC, then all of a sudden, like, Kranko's looking like the shit now, right? Because now you've got 8 1/1s that are each going to draw you a card when they hit. That's a different story. But in general, I think, like, make the unassuming play, ramp, try to mulligan hands with a board wipe, play more board wipes. You know, as much as I hate to, like, recommend playing more board wipes, it's just going to mean you win more games. Like, no one plays around board wipes. No one thinks about this like I'm suggesting you do, which is, like, take this commander who looks really aggro and slow him down just a tiny bit. Instead, like, land some big mana rocks, land a board wipe. Now everyone's down to like 3 cards and you still have 7 and you have a mana advantage. Like, what? How did this, you ever in one of those games where you're like, how do you have 10 mana and more cards in hand than me? Like, how did that happen? You didn't play any draw spells. It's because they didn't do shit. They just sat there and like played 1 mana rock and then waited a turn and then board wiped. And now all of a sudden they have a full hand, everyone else is at 2 and they're at 10 mana and you're at like 4. And you're like, what happened? That's how like you win a game of Commander. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does make sense. Yeah.
So like
I mean,
slow down your like so I'm not saying this to you specifically. I'm just saying in general, slow down your automatic decisions. Like, oh, it's really like obvious that I would play this and whatever. Or like even a turn 1 Soul Ring. I almost always play the turn 1 Soul Ring if I have it, but like sometimes you just don't. And I can't tell you
yeah,
when
like
that
if you
makes
don't have a way
sense.
to,
Well, yeah, if you have
yeah,
nothing
if
to
you don't
do
have
with
a
it
way
the
to
following
follow it
turn,
up,
sometimes like a turn 2 Soul Ring is like exactly the same, but everyone's not like staring daggers at you.
yeah, nobody's pissed off
Yeah.
about it.
So Commander's really hard because it involves all of these subjective things. And
Hmm.
I'm still learning every day, and it's why I enjoy the game, because it opens up these decision trees that are like so weird. But when you start to think about them like that, you're like, damn, I could really like do well here. Because Ryan, like you're a very good technical player. Like for someone that is as new as you are, I'm always impressed with your technical play. Like yes, you make some mistakes and sometimes like things takes extra time or whatever, but like this game's fucking hard. So like cut yourself some slack and just like get yourself out of the headspace of like I need to do everything perfectly, because like that's impossible. Like I make 10 mistakes a game that I don't talk about, and I'm a great player,
Okay.
you know?
Yeah.
It's impossible to do everything right. As much as I try, I still never do it. The decisions that like will have the biggest impact on the game are the like big picture, just strategic decisions that you may not have ever really taken time to think about as much as I think you should have. And that's like what I want you to take away from this call today is
Okay.
that. And I think that will help you with all of your deck building decisions and like your gameplay decisions and everything. So back to this, crack the myriad landscape. It's going to ramp you, which is great. The sooner you can ramp, the better. Like we didn't even get into talking about that, but like, you know, this is like playing a Farseek essentially, right?
Yeah.
It's 3 mana, but you're in mono red, so who cares? 3 mana Farseek is great. I'm going to do it. And like that's sets you up to so I guess the question is, what are we doing next turn? So let's pretend we crack this and we have, let's just find the actual mountains. All right, so now we're untapping and here's what we drew. So what do we do this turn? Because the difficult decisions with this hand are not over, I hate to tell you.
Yeah.
So I know we're spending a lot of time on this hand, but this hand is like such a good example, so I feel like it's worth it.
Yeah. I mean, I think now that, like, based off this, I wouldn't have said this a couple minutes ago, but I almost think we can play a mountain, tap 4 for Thran Dynamo, and then still just go ahead and even though it's not what the deck wants to do, I think with this hand it makes sense to go ahead and try to get GOGO out.
So just run GOGO out
Maybe.
right here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it, but it still allows us to ramp and set up extremely well for next turn.
How about GOGO versus one of these two?
Um, yeah, so like, I mean, now you could do the Cranko, but I mean, like nothing in our hand really.
I think playing naked GOGO is not the right decision here, because
Yeah, okay.
like I I think
There's no point.
exactly, like well there's
Yeah,
a point. You're not wasting 4 mana here, right?
yeah,
But maybe the Thran Dynamo, all these, this is all great thought process, by the way. Like I'm very happy with everything, but maybe we need to not assume that the Thran Dynamo is the correct play here, right?
okay.
So why don't we just
Yeah,
back up for a second and reconsider what our options are at this point? Because normally I'd say yes, develop the mana ASAP. But the nice thing about Thran Dynamo versus something like Worn Power Stone is that like you can develop it on any turn for just a like
1 mana.
-1 mana investment.
Yeah,
Exactly. So it's very easy
okay.
to slot in on a later turn. So I think that being the case, this is probably the wrong play right now.
Okay.
Now, if you had a reason to hold up Tybalt's Trickery, or play Lelia, or play Krenko, then I think Thran Dynamo is defensible. But
Yeah,
I think, you know, developing a dragon also has value too, right? Because I don't know if you realize, but this cares about 1 or more dragons dealing combat
yeah,
damage, and you've got 2 dragons in hand. So there's a lot of good like weight to playing one of these two.
yeah. I think I would go with the Goldspan just
Hmm.
because it's gonna make us it's gonna make us a treasure
Why is
for
that
sure.
good?
I mean, Because it taps for 2, and if somebody were to target it, we have
Exactly.
a to bolt trickery
Exactly.
in play
And
or in our hand.
how much better, now that you've realized that, how much better do you think that is than the original idea you had? Just honestly.
Yeah, a lot better. Yeah.
Right. And if you don't have to use the treasure, then the following turn you have a burst of 4 mana from your double
Yeah.
treasures. Or
So we'll
even
go from
6 mana because you play GOGO, right?
Yep.
You make 2 more treasures, and then it's like, oh my god. Or
Yeah.
you play Lelia and you get copying Lelia is broken, by the way. Like, because each one exiles a card, and then each one gets +2/+2 for each card that's exiled, so they'll both get +4/+4, and they'll be attacking as 8/6s.
Oh, yeah. That is busted.
And then you still have trickery out.
Yeah.
So this is why I say, like, take a little, and it's hard. You know, Magic's really hard because, like, yeah, if you had it all the time in the world and someone here to talk to about it, and, like, you know, there weren't distractions in the background, like, you could figure all this out. But that's just simply not the case. Sometimes you just need to go a little bit faster. But I at least want you to know that, like, it is worth thinking at least a turn ahead, because, like, that's going to change everything for you.
Okay.
Okay. Let's just do one more and then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
All right. This is a toss, no land.
Yep, easy one. That one's easy.
All right.
Ooh.
This is our second 7.
Yep. Extremely land heavy, but I'm keeping it just because we have an on-curve temple, no matter what, and we have turn 1 Ragavan, and then also, if we don't spend that treasure, we have turn 2 Lannery Storm to really be, like, super ahead of mana, or, like, you know, with those treasures, I think. So I would keep this one.
Okay, so, like, how does this hand go wrong?
If we just keep drawing lands,
Mm-hmm.
or just anything besides creature, like, you know, if we don't draw other creatures that are worth copying with
Yeah,
GOGO.
or any card advantage, right?
Yeah,
I think I'd mulligan this, but I think it could get there.
but it's luck based.
I like that, like, you know, on turn 4 you can play GOGO and you have 2 good targets, but that's turn 4. You don't even have the ability to play. Oh, I guess you run this out turn 2 and then don't sack it. You play Lannery, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I don't like this hand, but I think I could be wrong. Like, it's got a nice curve, and sometimes you have to trust the deck a little more than I end up doing. I just don't trust ever my draws, but
Yeah.
I'm just scared. Most people are scared to take mulligans. I'm sometimes the opposite, I feel. So that could be something I need to work on.
Yeah, like 1 in the hand's worth 2 in the bush, or whatever they say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, whatever that phrase is. I gotcha.
Let's just start over and do one more. So this is a first 7. This is one I added, by the way. You may not have it.
Fog?
It's
it protects GOGO. Okay.
Exactly. It allows you to attack without having to think about it. By the way, this card, ooh, Chef's Kiss, so good. I don't know if you've.
Yeah, I do have. I do have that.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was telling you. I was complimenting you. Like, have you pulled this off? Like, you just kill someone, right? Quadruple damage.
Yeah, I have not. I have not pulled it off, unfortunately.
You make 2 of these. You attack for 8, and they each do 32.
Yeah, it's busted.
Someone can be mad.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, this is a new one.
Yeah, I need to. I've seen a lot of that in GOGO as well.
Anything with double strike, so powerful. So that could be worth doing, and just, like, using the Scryfall search to find. Let me see all the double strike creatures and see how they might be fit.
Okay.
Anyway, what do you think of this hand? Keepable?
Yeah, this is definitely the weakest part. I mean,
I know.
I would still keep it. I mean, just because it has Ruby Medallion, and we're gonna get Ruby Medallion out turn 2.
Yeah.
And then just, I mean.
I agree. I would keep this hand as well. This hand gets there even if we draw no more land. Obviously, that would suck. But if it happened, this hand still works, right? Because we play Ruby Medallion, and then we're forced to play one of these 2. I think this is the better play, probably. Even though we really want the mana, you know, this triggers when other legendaries enter. So, like, it's valuable to play Lannery after this if we don't draw land. And then this gets there, like, very slowly, but, like, you know, Ruby Medallion turn 2, it's hard to like ignore the value of that. It's just so good. So I think you're right. I think in general, like you said, this is your weakest spot, but I think you made really good and thoughtful mulligan decisions in general. I just want you to like think a little bit more long term about what the hands are going to look like and how they're going to play out, and like how, like I said, the strategic implications of whatever you're intending to do.
Okay.
All right.
For sure.
Well, I'm ready to wrap up. Any final questions or things you wanted to go over?
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest thing, which it might just be a mono red thing, and that kind of seems like that might be the case, but there's like, it seems like it's so hard to get like true card advantage. Like everything is, exile it, you can play it this turn, or maybe until the end of your next turn. But as far as like, do you know of any good colorless like draw engines that would still work in this deck?
Ever
I
heard
know
of
Throne of
this card?
yeah,
Do you
yeah,
own one?
I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. You don't need
But
it.
and then
But
Throne of Eldraine, it draws cards as well,
yeah,
correct?
it
It's a
does.
little expensive, but
It's a great card. Like, I think you should play it if you have one. It's a little expensive, like cost wise, and I don't think you like. It's not essential. I think you've got a good amount of draw in your deck. Like, even in your
okay,
initial list, like you've got 15 things that are either engine or like natural draw. This will get you there. I think the only problem with your current list is that you don't have enough mana rocks and enough land. So
okay,
if you just take this deck away like right after we finish and do exactly what I said, which is like flip over to mana value, even if you don't want to think about this and you just like, let's say you just want to go play right now because you're excited and you just want to play. If you literally
yeah,
cut like these 6 cards, like from full throttle down through like everything from full
just get rid
throttle
of all of
down,
those.
let's say
Yeah,
like you don't want to think about this at all, just cut all of those cards, add 3 land and 5 mana rocks, like any mana rocks you have lying around. Ideally, if they're 2, that would be great, but like whatever you
okay,
have, and just try the deck like that. What I would encourage you to, this is something that I've told a couple of people and I think is a really valuable takeaway. I think people are really worried about not having enough stuff to play, like running out of cards, but I think what I've seen more often is that you just don't have enough mana to play the stuff that you have drawn.
okay,
And I would say like add more land to your decks, instead of trying to figure out like how few lands you can play, because I think that's the mentality a lot of people have is like, how few lands can I get away with running, right? Have
oh,
you
that's
ever thought that?
1000%
Yeah,
what
that's everyone
that's what
because
I
like
did with
lands are
this.
boring and you
Yeah,
don't want to play lands.
yeah,
I like to try to think of things in the opposite way, and it's hard to do, and you have to kind of force yourself. But like, just try it once. Like, how many lands can I get away with playing in this deck?
okay,
And there is an answer to this question. Like, you will discover it, and you'll be like, shit, I'm like getting flooded every game, and that sucks. But like, I think lands are the best cards in decks, and missing a land drop is like awful. It's like such a like brutal tempo like hit.
okay,
Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. What I would recommend for looking for card advantage is just do it, be in your deck, type
hmm
O tag, which is Oracle tag, card advantage. You could also
okay,
do draw, or you could do
okay,
both. Like this will show you either. I don't really know the difference, so like I would recommend something like this. I'll send this
okay,
to you in Discord. But then also I have this applying automatically, but if you don't, then add this as well. This is going to show the most popular EDHREC cards first. So now it's going to show me anything that's draw or draw advantage in the colors of this deck. It's automatically going to filter to stuff that could fit in this deck.
okay,
And then the best things first. So now let's say you don't want to see like mana rocks. You can also say like, I don't want to see mana rocks. So I'm going to minus O tag mana rock. And then that's going to filter those out. So you could do a lot of
okay,
refinement in this way. And then, skip over the cards that you don't have or don't want to get and look at the options. But I think in general, like you're doing well. If you just focus on curving out and like getting one of your card advantage engines that's on a creature, like Magus the Wheel is great, like that's a way to get card advantage. And then you've got some
hmm
other ones, like you're not playing Lelia right now. But, oh, you are playing Lelia. Okay, great. So Lelia is a perfect one. This is like one of the
okay,
best cards you could see in your opener. So yeah, just
yeah,
take a look in that way. That's how I would look for stuff. I'll
okay.
send this to you in Discord.
Awesome.
Anything
Yeah, I need
else?
to get a copy of no, that I this was extremely helpful and I appreciate you
Oh, good. Was
taking
it?
the
Okay.
extra. I
Okay.
appreciate it. It was a lot and obviously it's a lot to take in, but
Yeah.
at the end of the
Um,
day, I mean, you narrowed it down to like if you just do this and this, to this deck, it's going to immediately make it better. And then also with you sending like the stuff over, I mean, so I can go back and look at it.
Yeah,
That's gonna be
exactly.
super
And you're gonna have
helpful.
access to the video and like all the documentation I have. But yeah, have a great one. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
You got it. Thank you so much for watching. If this is something you're interested in, please check out my Patreon or contact me directly on Discord. My handle there is SurfCityTCG, or the link to my Discord server is in the video description and in the comments below. Also, I love feedback. I don't get a ton of comments. If you enjoyed this video, if it's something that you'd like to see more of in the future, please let me know. It was a lot of work to produce this and to prepare for it and everything. So it's really validating when I hear from people letting them know why they liked it or what they felt like could have been better. I love to get constructive feedback too. So don't hesitate to reach out and let me know what you thought. Thanks so much. Matt from Surf City TCG signing off. By supporting me on Patreon, you help me toward my dream of quitting my day job and opening my own local game store. You can earn credits that you can use toward in-depth and detailed deck reviews, one-on-one coaching sessions, custom tokens, and more. Thanks for your consideration. I truly appreciate your support.